I'm Alexis Moreno, 28, gripping Grandma's scarf as I sit through the funeral in Portland, Maine. My family's grief feels like a performance. Mom fakes tears, snapping photos for her followers. Bad angle, she hisses, adjusting her pose. Dad argues over costs, eyes glued to his stocks. Hours later, the attorney drops a bomb. I inherit $22.5 million. Mom's smile vanishes. Dad mutters, "No way." My brother glares, accusing me of scheming. A video plays Grandma and Grandpa, their voices firm. "Some of you only saw our money." My chest tightens, but I stay quiet. That night at family dinner, it all erupted. Mom demands I sign over control. I refuse. Her hand flies, slapping my cheek hard. "You don't deserve it." "You have no say here," she snapped. The table freezes. I don't flinch, just walk out, pull my phone. Fingers trembling, I type cancel everything. Immediately. A move they'd regret by morning. What I did next flipped their world upside down. They thought they could break me, but I was just getting started. Before I get to my story, I want to know what time and what city you're listening in. I'm glad to know how far my story has spread. The next morning, my phone buzzed with Dad's voicemail. His voice came through sharp and angry. "What the hell did you do, Alexis? Fix this, or you're done." I replayed it twice, my heart pounding. In the background, I heard Mom yelling about the power outage and Jacob complaining about no Wi-Fi. Their house must have gone dark from the services I canceled last night, the bills I'd been covering for months without them knowing. I couldn't stay. Grabbing my backpack, I stuffed in clothes, a laptop, and Grandma's scarf. The apartment keys dug into my palm as I locked up, aware Dad controlled the lease. One word from him and eviction papers would arrive. I slipped down the stairs, avoiding neighbors, and hit the road before traffic picked up. The drive to the harbor house felt endless, the bay's outline emerging as dawn broke. I parked by the old wooden steps, the place looking unchanged despite everything. Before I reached the door, it swung open. A middle-aged man with graying hair and a quiet demeanor stepped out. "Miss Alexis, welcome," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Luis Alvarez, the estate manager here for 15 years. He guided me inside the familiar creak of floors, easing my tension a bit. "Your grandparents trusted me with this." Luis pulled a small USB drive from his pocket. "They said you'd need it if family turned ugly." We moved to Grandpa's study, the desk cluttered with old ledgers from their seafood business. I inserted the drive files, popping up instantly. The first document was an email chain from 3 years back. Dad pleading for $100,000, promising quick returns on his latest scheme. Grandpa replied cautiously but attached transfer confirmation. Follow-ups showed no repayment, Dad dodging questions. Another folder held scanned journals. One entry detailed Mom arriving with real estate agents, measuring rooms and snapping photos. "Oh, she claims it's for redecorating ideas," Grandma wrote. But I overheard her discussing market value. My fingers scrolled faster, uncovering more. Thousands wired to Jacob's failed app ventures, each one defaulted. Property deeds, Mom tried pushing through last year, claiming updates for tax purposes. They'd been chipping away at the estate piece by piece while pretending to care. A soft tap at the door broke my focus. Denise Ellis, the housekeeper, entered, carrying tea, her eyes red from recent loss. "Reading Mrs. Crystal's records?" she asked, setting the tray down. It wasn't a question. "I kept copies too," as she asked. She returned with a box of printouts, loan agreements, startup proposals, all unpaid. "Your mother even tried getting signatures during hospital visits." The evidence piled up like waves crashing. They'd exploited every visit, every favor. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me. Just then, my phone dinged, a text from Brandy Kim. "On my way, heard about the mess." As my colleague at the school, she knew my family's patterns. Minutes later, she arrived, hugging me without words. We sat together, sifting through files. "This is insane," Brandy said, pointing to a wire transfer. "They've been leeching for years." Her tech savvy helped organize the digital mess, flagging patterns I missed. As we worked, the weight shifted from panic to purpose. Grandpa's words echoed in my mind about standing firm. By afternoon, the house felt like a fortress. Luis checked in, offering to secure the gates. "Your grandparents prepared for this," he said. Brandy nodded. "We need a plan." I agreed, knowing the fight was just beginning. The next afternoon, I sat at Grandpa's desk, the USB drive still warm in my hand from yesterday's discoveries. The harbor house creaked softly, a familiar comfort, but my pulse raced. I needed help. I dialed Ryan Hayes, the family attorney who'd read the will. "Alexis, I'm on my way," he said, voice steady. Within hours, the dining room filled with faces I hadn't expected to lean on. Ryan arrived first, his leather briefcase stuffed with legal folders. "Your grandparents trusted me for 20 years, he said, setting up at the table. Victoria Grant, their financial advisor, followed her tablet glowing with account details. "I've locked the estate funds tight," she assured me. Anna Reed, Grandpa's business partner at the seafood chain, strode in next, her expression grim. "Someone sniffing around our suppliers, asking about contracts." Denise Ellis, the housekeeper, slipped in quietly, clutching a folder of her own records. Brandy Kim, my colleague from school, sat beside me, scrolling her phone. "Check this," she said, tilting the screen. Mom had posted on Instagram a tearful selfie captioned, "Betrayed by family fighting for what's ours." The post already had hundreds of likes, comments piling up from strangers in Portland. "She's painting you as the villain," Brandy muttered, her fingers flying to screenshot it. I rubbed my temples, the sting of Mom's slap still fresh in my mind. "They're not stopping," I said. Ryan nodded, pulling out papers. "We can file for protective orders, but we need more evidence." Denise set her folder down. "I've got something." She opened it to reveal bank statements, each highlighting transfers to Dad's failing real estate deals. "Mrs. Crystal asked me to track every dollar." Anna spoke up. "Employees at the seafood stores reported odd calls, someone claiming to represent the family digging for financials." My stomach twisted. Jacob's tech startup had always burned through cash, and now it seemed he was targeting the business. Victoria tapped her tablet. "I found withdrawals attempted last week blocked because your grandparents changed the access codes." Luis Alvarez appeared at the doorway holding a small hard drive. "Miss Alexis, the security system recorded everything." We crowded around Grandpa's old computer as he plugged it in. Footage from the day of the funeral loaded, Mom wrapping silverware in her scarf, Dad pocketing a signed ledger, Jacob slipping a small painting under his jacket. They'd moved through the house like scavengers, their fake tears barely dry. "That's theft," Ryan said, his pen scratching notes. "This plus the financial records gives us grounds for legal action." Brandy zoomed in on a frame. "Look," Mom's checking prices on her phone while grabbing stuff. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected, their greed laid bare in grainy video. My phone buzzed again, another voicemail, this time from Jacob. "You're making a mistake, Alexis," he said, his voice low. "Hand it over or we'll make things public." I played it for the group, my hands shaking. Brandy frowned. "He's bluffing, but they're coordinated. That Instagram post wasn't random." Victoria leaned forward. "Your grandparents set up a trust structure to protect the estate from this kind of grab. I've got the portfolio details, 22.5 million, mostly in business assets and investments." Anna added. "The seafood chain's employees are loyal. They're ready to back you if this hits the community." Denise spoke softly. "Mrs. Crystal knew this would happen. She told me to watch your mother especially." Her folder included a letter from Mom to Grandma dated last year, pushing for a quick sale of the harbor house. "For your benefit," it claimed, but the attached appraisal showed millions in potential profit. I stood pacing the room. The weight of their lies pressed down, but the team around me felt like a lifeline. "What's our next step?" I asked. Ryan flipped open his laptop. "We compile this camera footage, financials, that letter, and file for emergency orders. Main courts move fast on clear evidence." Brandy's phone pinged. "Another post," she said, her voice tight. Mom had doubled down now, hinting at my unstable behavior to her followers. Comments from local business owners I recognized stung the most, questioning my character. "We need to counter this," Brandy urged, already drafting a response from my account. Luis checked his phone. "The gates are secure, but I'll monitor for visitors." Anna nodded. "I'll warn the store managers to report any more strange calls." The room hummed with purpose, each person a piece of the defense I hadn't known I'd need. As daylight faded, I looked at the team. Grandpa's words about standing firm rang in my ears. They thought they could bully me into submission, but every lie they told was building my case stronger. 3 days after the team meeting, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I sat in Grandpa's study, the harbor house quiet except for the faint hum of waves outside. Brandy Kim leaned over my shoulder, her laptop open. "Your mom's gone viral," she said, voice tight. I glanced at her screen. Mom's latest Instagram post, a video of her in a black dress dabbing tears. "My own daughter turned against us, stealing what belongs to the family," she said to thousands of followers. Comments flooded in, locals I knew calling me greedy, unstable. My throat tightened, but I pushed it down. Brandy scrolled further. "She's tagging businesses in Portland, stirring up trouble." I checked my email. My principal had forwarded a message from Dad. "We're concerned about Alexis's mental state," it read, claiming I wasn't fit to teach. The school hadn't bought it, but the accusation stung. "They're hitting you from every angle," Brandy said, her fingers tapping furiously. My phone pinged again, a direct message with a video link. I clicked and my stomach dropped. It was Grandma and Grandpa, or so it looked, speaking in stilted voices. "Alexis pressured us to change the will," the fake grandma said. "We were scared." The video was a deep fake, their faces oddly stiff. But it was convincing enough to fool most. "This is next level," Brandy muttered, pausing the clip. "Jacob's tech skills, I bet." I called Ryan Hayes immediately. "They're escalating," I said, forwarding the video. "This is slander, Alexis," he replied, his voice calm but firm. "We can use it against them." Brandy, already on her laptop, pulled up software to analyze the file. "Metadata shows it was made 2 days ago," she said, pointing to timestamps. "I can trace the upload to an IP linked to Jacob's startup server." Her tech know-how was a lifeline I hadn't expected. Ryan arrived within the hour, his briefcase heavier than before. The camera footage from the funeral, Denise's financial records, and now this deepfake. "It's enough for emergency protective orders," he said, spreading papers across the table. "Maine courts prioritize clear evidence of harassment." I nodded, my resolve hardening. "File them," I said. "All of them." Brandy kept digging, her screen glowing with code. "Got it," she said, pulling up a report. "The deepfake used a free AI tool, sloppy work. I've isolated artifacts, pixel distortions, audio glitches. We can prove it's fake." She emailed the analysis to Ryan, who added it to the legal packet. "This strengthens our case," he said, his pen moving fast. "They're trying to ruin your reputation, but they've overplayed their hand." By the next morning, Mom's Instagram had another post, a photo of me as a teenager, captioned, "She's always been troubled." Locals I'd grown up with were liking it, their comments sharp. I felt exposed, but Brandy squeezed my hand. "They're desperate," she said. "Let's stay focused." I took a breath, remembering Grandpa's advice to keep my head clear. Victoria Grant called with an update. "Your parents tried accessing the estate accounts again, denied thanks to the new codes." Anna Reed texted next. "Store managers got emails from an anonymous account questioning the seafood chain's stability." "It's your family, no doubt. Their moves were relentless, but each one gave us more to work with." Ryan filed the protective orders that afternoon, citing harassment, theft, and defamation. "Maine's Title 19A is strict on this," he explained. "With the deepfake and Instagram posts, we're looking at a quick approval." By the end of the week, the court responded, temporary orders granted, barring Mom, Dad, and Jacob from contacting me or the business directly. Violations could mean fines or jail time. Brandy showed me a draft post for my own account, a simple statement. "Lies spread fast, but truth lasts longer." We held off posting, waiting for Ryan's advice. "Let the orders hit first," he said. "They won't expect it." I looked out the window, the harbor's gray waves steady against the chaos. My family thought they could bury me with lies, but every step they took was digging their own hole deeper. A week after the protective orders were filed, I stood outside the Portland Chamber of Commerce, the harbor's salty breeze cutting through my jacket. The luncheon was set to honor Grandma and Grandpa's seafood business, a legacy spanning decades. My stomach churned knowing Mom, Dad, and Jacob would show up. Ryan Hayes adjusted his tie beside me. "Stay calm," he said. "The community's watching." Inside the banquet hall buzzed with local business owners, their chatter pausing as I entered. Anna Reed, already at our table, leaned in. "Employees are here to back you," she whispered, nodding toward a group in company polos. Brandy Kim, phone in hand, scanned the room. "No sign of them yet," she said, but her eyes stayed sharp. The chamber president, a gray-haired man named Tom Wheeler, took the podium. "We're here to celebrate the Moreno family's contribution to Portland," he began, holding up a plaque. "Their seafood chain built jobs and trust." Applause rippled, but I caught movement at the entrance. Mom swept in, her black dress camera ready, Dad and Jacob trailing. Their faces were all confidence, like they owned the place. Mom made a beeline for Tom, her voice loud enough to carry. "There's been a misunderstanding about the estate," she said, dabbing her eyes. "We're here to claim family heirlooms rightfully ours." Dad stepped forward, his tone smooth. "The business belongs to all of us, not just one person." Jacob hung back, his expression uneasy, avoiding my gaze. I stood, my legs steady despite the nerves. "Those heirlooms were left to me," I said, loud enough for the room to hear. "The will is clear." Gasps spread as Tom frowned, glancing between us. Mom's smile faltered, but she pressed on. "Alexis isn't equipped to manage this. She's confused, unstable." Before I could respond, a woman in the crowd stood, Mrs. Larson, a neighbor who'd known Grandma for years. "I saw you take silverware from their house the day of the funeral." She called out, her phone raised with a photo. "Posted it online too." Murmurs grew. A store manager in a polo stood next. "Anonymous emails tried to scare our suppliers, but we know the Morenos' real wishes." Brandy leaned over, whispering, "Check Twitter." I glanced at her phone. Local reporters were live tweeting, quoting Mrs. Larson. A news van idled outside, its logo visible through the window. "Who called the media?" Dad snapped, his face reddening. Another neighbor, Mr. Coleman, raised his hand. "I did. We protect our own in Portland." Mom clutched her purse, her composure cracking. "This is a family matter," she said, voice shrill. But the room wasn't hers. Anna stood, her voice cutting through. "The seafood chain thrives because of Eric and Crystal's integrity, not yours." Employees nodded, some clapping. A reporter approached, microphone ready, asking about the will. Ryan handed me a folder. "Show them," he said. I held up a copy of the will, my voice clear. "Grandma and Grandpa chose me to carry their legacy. Every move you've made proves why." The crowd's applause drowned out Mom's protest. Jacob shifted, his eyes meeting mine for a split second, guilt maybe, but he stayed silent. Dad grabbed Mom's arm, steering her toward the exit. "This isn't over," he muttered, but his steps were hurried. Jacob followed, head down, avoiding the staring crowd. The news van's camera tracked them as they left, their united front crumbling under the town's gaze. Tom returned to the podium, handing me the plaque. "To Alexis Moreno for upholding the Moreno legacy," he said. The room stood, clapping their support, a warmth I hadn't expected. Brandy grinned, snapping a photo. "This is going viral for the right reasons," she said. As we sat back down, Anna squeezed my shoulder. "Your grandparents would be proud." I held the plaque, its weight grounding me. They'd tried to tear me down in front of everyone, but Portland saw through their lies. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time I felt the town behind me. 3 months after the mediation, I sat at my desk in the Portland Elementary School, my nameplate, Alexis Moreno Teacher, still the title that grounded me. The Harbor House had become my home, its quiet floors a reminder of Grandma and Grandpa's trust. I'd spent weeks setting up the Moreno Foundation, a scholarship fund for kids training in the seafood trade. Today, the first recipients would visit. 5 teenagers filed into my classroom clutching acceptance letters. Their eyes widened as I explained the program: full tuition for vocational courses, stipends for living, and apprenticeships at the family seafood chain. My grandparents believed in building futures, I told them, handing out packets. One girl, nervous but bright, whispered, "This changes everything." I smiled, thinking of Grandpa's lessons about hard work. Outside school, I'd blocked Mom's number after her last text, a plea for family unity, with a link to her latest Instagram sob story. Dad's emails demanding a cut of the $22.5 million went unanswered. Jacob sent one message asking to meet just us. I deleted it. Their signatures on the mediation agreement bound them to return stolen items, silverware, ledgers, a painting, all back in the house now. Contact was over. Ryan Hayes called with updates. "Your parents violated the protective orders," he said. "They emailed a supplier claiming you're mismanaging the business." The court wasn't lenient. Fines hit Dad's already crumbling real estate ventures, pushing him toward Chapter 7 bankruptcy. His credit score, once his pride, was wrecked, locking him out of new deals. Portland's business circle, tight-knit and loyal to Grandpa's legacy, cut ties with him. Brandy Kim stopped by the house that evening carrying takeout from a local seafood shack. "Your mom's influencer gigs are drying up," she said, scrolling through Twitter. Brianna's followers had dropped after a local news outlet ran a story on the mediation, citing her theft and defamation. A civil lawsuit for slander filed by Ryan on my behalf loomed over her. Maine's courts didn't take kindly to her public lies, and her brand deals vanished as sponsors backed away. Jacob's startup was the next to fall. Investors, spooked by the family's actions, pulled funding from his app project. Ryan had warned that elder abuse charges were still on the table, and if pursued, Jacob could face probation under Maine law. His last email hinted at regret, but I didn't reply. Their choices had carved a line I wouldn't cross. The seafood chain thrived under Anna Reed's management, with employees now sharing profits through a new plan I'd pushed for. Victoria Grant sent financial reports showing the estate's investments stable and growing. "Your grandparents would be proud," she wrote. I walked through the harbor house, touching Grandma's knitting basket untouched since her passing. Their trust wasn't just the money, it was the values they'd instilled. One afternoon, Luis Alvarez brought a box from the attic labeled "For Alexis." Inside were Grandpa's old business journals detailing the seafood chain's start in the 1960s. A note from Grandma tucked between pages read, "Stand firm, Alexis. Family is who lifts you, not who takes." I held it, my eyes stinging, but kept moving forward. At school, a student sat in my office, her voice shaky. "My parents say I owe them for everything," she said, echoing my own past. I handed her a packet: resources for setting boundaries, something I'd learned the hard way. "You're worth more than their demands." I told her words I wished I'd heard sooner. 6 months after the mediation, the Portland Press-Herald ran a feature on the Moreno Foundation. "Local teacher honors family legacy," the headline read. The article detailed the scholarship's employee profit sharing and the seafood chain's community impact. Not a word about my family's drama. Ryan had kept it out of the press, per my request. I walked the harbor house grounds, stopping at a new bench by the water, a plaque engraved "Crystal and Eric Moreno Legacy Through Love." The team, Ryan, Brandy, Anna, Victoria, Luis, Denise, gathered for a quiet dinner that night. The dining table, once a battleground, now filled with laughter. They were my family now, bound by actions, not blood. Mom, Dad, and Jacob kept trying: texts, emails, even a letter from Mom's lawyer. I ignored them all, my phone's block list growing. Their world had collapsed under the weight of their greed, and I'd built something lasting in its place. The lesson was clear: family isn't owed loyalty if they betray you. Setting boundaries, hard as it was, protected what mattered most. 7 students arrived that morning, nervous but eager, holding scholarship acceptance letters. I handed out packets detailing full tuition monthly stipends and guaranteed jobs at the family's seafood chain. Grandma and Grandpa built this business on hard work, I said, watching their faces light up. One boy, barely 16, grinned. This means I can stay here, not leave town. Their hope mirrored what I'd felt learning from Grandpa years ago. I'd stopped checking Mom's Instagram after blocking her number. Her last post, a tearful rant about family betrayal, got no reply from me. Dad's voicemails demanding a share of the $22.5 million went straight to spam. Jacob sent a text asking for a coffee meetup to clear things up. I swiped it away, their signed mediation agreement enough to keep them at bay. The returned silverware and ledgers sat untouched in the study, a reminder of their greed. Ryan Hayes called with news. "Your parents breached the protective orders again," he said. His voice clipped. "They contacted a store manager pushing for control." Maine's courts slapped them with heavier fines, crushing Dad's real estate deals. His latest venture collapsed under Chapter 7 bankruptcy, his credit score tanking so hard no bank would touch him. Portland's tight business community, loyal to the Moreno name, blacklisted him from new contracts. Brandy Kim dropped by after school, her phone buzzing with notifications. "Brianna's done," she said, showing a local news article. The Portland Press-Herald exposed her theft at the funeral, backed by mediation leaks. Her influencer status crumbled, sponsors dropped her, and a slander lawsuit I'd filed through Ryan gained traction. Maine's laws hit hard on defamation, and her lost brand deals left her scrambling. Jacob's startup imploded next, his investors wary after the public fallout yanked their funding. Ryan had flagged potential elder abuse charges still looming if we pushed forward. Under Maine law, Jacob could face probation or worse for his role in the financial schemes. His last email hinting at an apology sat unread. I wasn't open to second chances. The seafood chain grew stronger, with Anna Reed rolling out an employee ownership plan I'd proposed. Workers, many who'd known Grandpa, now had a stake in the profits. Victoria Grant emailed updated financials. The estate's investments were secure, even expanding. "You're honoring their vision," she wrote. I walked the house, pausing at Grandpa's old desk, where a faded photo of us fixing a delivery van hung on the wall. One evening, Luis Alvarez handed me a sealed envelope from the attic. "Your grandparents left this for you," he said. Inside was a letter from Grandma Alexis. "Choose who you call family by their heart, not their name." Her words steadied me, a guide through the chaos. At school, a shy student lingered after class. "My family expects me to pay them back for everything," she said, her voice small. I gave her a folder, legal resources, boundary tips, lessons I'd learned the hard way. "You don't owe them your worth," I told her, echoing what I needed at her age. 6 months after the mediation, a local paper ran a story: Moreno Foundation lifts Portland youth. It praised the scholarships and the seafood chain's new profit sharing, no mention of my family's mess. I'd asked Ryan to keep it quiet. The community's support felt enough. I stood by the harbor, a new garden planted where Grandma once grew herbs, a small sign reading "Crystal and Eric Moreno, built on trust." That night, Ryan, Brandy, Anna, Victoria, Luis, and Denise gathered for dinner at the house. The table, once a place of betrayal, now held warmth and laughter. They were my family, earned through loyalty. Mom's lawyer sent one last letter, a weak plea for settlement. I shredded it. Dad's calls stopped, his business ruined. Jacob's startup folded, his silence final. Their greed had burned their bridges, and I'd built new ones with those who stood by me. The truth was simple: family isn't blood if it's built on lies. Protecting what matters means walking away from those who don't.